Okay, so we've got just another minute or so before we get started with the research session. Hopefully everybody can hear and see me fine. I think we've got 2 of our 3 speakers and our third will be joining us very shortly. I guess I'll probably just start out by giving everybody kind of a rundown on what I was hoping to get out of a research session. And so, you know, we've got a diversity of speakers with us today. You've already heard my little stump speech earlier, but we've got 3 different speakers who are going to give short talks about some research here that they've done in Colorado. And they really do span a diversity of career stages, of experience, and probably ideologies, beliefs, and lots of other different things about what the role of research is in pollinator conservation and management, right? And so the reason I invited them was so that we could all get their perspective by learning about their research as to you know, pollinator research, what's going on with Colorado's pollinators, and then all of us together as a group can kind of discuss, after hearing their viewpoints of research and exploring what their research is, how that might be used in further conservation action. And then at the end, after we get out of the breakout tables, we'll be able to come back here on Zoom with all of the speakers, hopefully. And if there are questions that y'all really want to relay to them outside of the chat in this live feed, we can then have a little panel discussion afterwards. Hopefully that sounds okay. Let's see, one of the things I'll note is different from the other sessions is that if you look down at the breakout tables, these are actually broken out topically, right? And so if you scroll down on the Booth Central page for the Sunflower Room, you'll see all 10 of the different virtual tables. And if you look at the more info, if you click the little drop down arrow, you'll see that I've posted some questions for each one of those tables. And so, for instance, if you were to go during the breakout session down to table number 6, it's the role of diversity in pollinator research. That's not about pollinator diversity in research. It's about the role of having a more diverse group of pollinator researchers, or how we take our pollinator research to a more diverse audience, right? And there's a couple of questions about increasing diversity in either pollinator research or our impact through pollinator research there. So during the breakout session, if you think that's a cool and interesting topic, I'd highly recommend you join that table and interact with people that are there. So I think that's enough for me about the nuts and bolts of the session itself. So I'll start out with just a quick little introduction to our panelists, and then I'll turn it over to David Inouye, who's going to give us the very first talk. So bear with me for just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce all 3 of you right now so that we don't have to break up the sessions later on, and then you can screen share. So our first speaker is going to be Dr. Dave Goulson. He's Dr. David Inouye, wrong David. Dr. David Inouye, who's a professor emeritus in the Department of Biology at the University of Maryland. He's also president of the Ecological Society of America and a principal investigator at the Rocky Mountain Biological Laboratory, what we colloquially call Rumble. And Dr. Inouye has studied pollinators and their interactions with flowers at Rumble for several decades. I won't give anything away. And his long-term research studies of high elevation flowers and insect communities at Rumble really does offer some unique insights into how climate change is impacting biological communities, and especially in mountain and alpine environments. And so I'm really looking forward to see what David has to say today. Our second speaker is going to be Dr. Julian Rosasco, who's an assistant professor in the Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology at the University of Colorado Boulder. His research broadly encompasses how plant-pollinator interactions vary across space and through time. And his research uses networks to explore characteristics of entire communities of interacting plants and pollinators and how they change into response to environmental disturbances such as habitat loss or fragmentation or changes through time. And then our final speaker is going to be Jess Mullins, who's a graduate student in the Museum and Field Studies program in the entomology section at the Museum of Natural History at the University of Colorado Boulder. And her thesis research is actually exploring how pollinator communities change in response to catastrophic environmental events like flooding, and how human management practices could help impact resilience to a recovery after some catastrophic changes. And so all three of these guys know a lot about pollinators and about how pollinator communities respond to change. And so I'm really looking forward to see what they've got to say.